Can you, or can you,
Go ahead.
never mind. I just
No, go
noticed I have
ahead.
a stain right here on my shirt. I was like, can I, but I'm cool with it. I can address it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that is, I mean, that's,
no.
yeah, okay, we'll stick with that. All right. We're gonna get started just on Zoom, guys. So we are super excited to have Jonathan with us today. And Jonathan, I know you from Instagram. Your Instagram name is Duke Does Amazon. I'm not sure, are you on any other social media
Yeah,
platform?
no, Instagram, YouTube, and then essentially what I do is just sometimes take applicable audio from YouTube and put it in podcast form just in case. Maybe I listen to Gary Vee one too many times, but like if somebody wants to listen in a car ride or something, you know?
Okay, well,
No,
Jonathan, we are very excited to have you. So thank you for joining us.
thank you.
Um, we are going to just go ahead and dive in. So you share a lot of content. Like to me, everything that you post is very food for thought, which I love. But you don't share a ton of like your specific journey. I actually don't feel like I know very much about your
Sure.
journey. So can you give us kind of an idea of like what got you started into Amazon selling, how long you've been a seller, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, totally. So I've been buying and selling things as long as I can remember. Like truthfully, it's just something I've always had a knack for. And what happened was, so I'm 36. So I was doing Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, Amazon textbooks when I was in college, like always, always. And then as I got older, I got into like I have flipped so many different things because it's all the same game, buy low, sell high, understand what you're going to hopefully be able to sell it for, from cargo trailers to IKEA furniture to homes. And to fast forward a little, I have a business outside of this. Actually, I'm wearing a shirt, which I just pointed out. I just realized I had a stain, so I'll acknowledge that right now. Sorry. Um, but so I started this company 7 years ago, and it was halted during COVID. And in the back of my mind for a long time, I had wanted to, I kind of was like, why did I ever stop reselling stuff on the side? I didn't really have a good answer. COVID happened. I had no excuse. Submerged myself into YouTube, but not like analysis paralysis. Like I got the gist of it. And then I just hit stores. And then I got enough crumbs that like, okay, I see why this can work and why this makes sense. And to just bring it to current day, I started doing retail arbitrage for, that's all I did for basically 2 years. I was in what I think to be a hotbed for RA, which is South Florida, because it's so populated. There are so many stores in such a condensed uh, radius. And then I moved 2 years ago to Asheville, North Carolina. And so, whole different environment, and not nearly as many stores. And it was just kind of like the perfect timing to say, okay, I'm going to take everything I've learned and just transition to OA. And that came with some lumps, and learning curve, but it's still the same premise. And so that's kind of a real quick snapshot of how I got to this point. This month will be 4 years since my first sale on Amazon, and I chip away like every single day at it. So it's really like ingrained in my day to day at this point.
That's awesome. So we started like March of 2020.
Yeah.
So we've been going at it like almost the exact same amount of time.
Yep.
And are you all Amazon or are you Walmart and also like the other platforms like eBay,
Yeah.
whatnot, any of like those other ones?
Sure. To me, I've always, I think of, if I were to describe myself, I would say I'm an Amazon seller that uses the other platforms just for offloading type of things. I never buy something to specifically sell on eBay, for instance, right? It just happens to be a crutch because things happen with Amazon. Just recently, I started selling on Walmart, and that's because my hand was forced, and we can get into it, but basically I got caught up in red restricted brands, um, to my knowledge, with no warning. I'm like, I can almost swear on it that there was no way of me knowing. And so I had all of this inventory, a lot of it, like an abnormally large amount for these brands at a given time. And I had to figure out a solution. And how fortunate am I, if you want to look at the glass half full, that Walmart's around, and now that I got a taste of it, I'm going to use this to offload all of that. But I could totally see myself now slowly integrating 10, 20% opportunity of my attention for sourcing towards Walmart because I've been so impressed with it thus far.
Hmm. Okay, so we'll stick with that topic for a second.
Sure.
So you're still kind of like obviously in the early days of Walmart. Have you sent a like a
Yes.
Walmart fulfilled shipment yet?
Yep.
Okay, so you've done all the steps at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah.
What have been some of like the early hiccups that you have experienced that like seem to be because everyone's afraid to start, right? Like they
Right.
don't know what they don't know, they don't know what they're getting into. So
Yeah.
what were some of the struggles that you had getting started?
Yeah, so I will say this, if you are a seasoned Amazon seller, I don't think the learning curve is going to be that long. Like I think it's just deciding, hey, I'm going to just power through my first shipment and figure it out. But the some new stuff to me that I've never experienced before, like everything I'm offloading is vitamins and supplements. And they require for a lot of these products, what is it called? Or specific data sheet,
Oh
something
yeah.
so basically, some new lingo. Basically, it's a formality. You have to do a Google search for this product. There's like a safety sheet on it. You have to provide the link. Instead of ASIN, they basically use barcodes, which they refer to as GTIN. So even though it's not apples to apples, like again, if you're an Amazon seller, you really get the gist. And frankly, creating a shipment myself, I think is easier than Amazon. They don't split it up for you. For a lot of these, you're just using the barcode for one pack, so you don't even have to print labels. I find the FBA version of Walmart, I think it's WFS, is really simple. You just have to get through the first, everything's new, but I didn't have a choice, so I had to power through. Um, Not every product gets approved. You're allowed to sell, so many things right away, their version of FBM. But then I've been getting quite a few products that like there's an error that comes up or whatever the case may be. So I just sell those from my house for right now. But other than that, like don't be intimidated by it would be the best advice I would give. And I am so gung ho that everybody that's selling on Amazon, if nothing else, from my short experience, it is hands down the best way to offload stuff, if nothing else, just for offloading.
And how do you see yourself? Because you said like you could see yourself maybe doing a little bit
Yeah.
for Walmart. How do
Yes.
you see yourself balancing now the two moving forward?
Yeah. So I don't have an exact plan now, and because of the lack of like, there's no Keepa equivalent, right? So a lot of this is, and I'm sure everyone has their own way of doing it, but like for instance, if I come across an out of stock item on Amazon, right? Or I like to seek out of stock items a lot. So maybe instead of buying just for a round number 10 for Amazon, I'll buy 8 for Amazon and 2 for Walmart, right? And this way it just diversifies my risk of more sellers hopping on and taking the price, right? It just spreads it out a little bit and it gives me an opportunity to learn Walmart. I mean, I think if you're going to do that, you have to be willing to maybe have a one step back, two steps forward mentality, right? Because with the lack of data, I'm kind of using Keepa. How does this sell on Amazon? How many reviews does this have on Walmart? Are there any sellers? Is it a hard to get product? So when I get to that point, at least my current mindset is basically I'm going to continue to buy the same products I would for Amazon and maybe throw one or two over to Walmart to get that test buy feedback type of thing. I don't have too much more of a game plan yet as of now.
No, I actually think that's really smart. And real quick, I'm going to backtrack now to Amazon. What kind of revenue are you doing on Amazon, just so people know what kind of seller you are?
Yeah, no, 100%. So last year I finished up just shy of 900K for revenue for the year. And this year, up until recently when I've got punched in the gut a couple of times, I was really my goal was gonna be like 1.1 million plus. I would be disappointed if I don't surpass a million on Amazon. So that's where I hope to be this year.
Awesome. Okay. And then what like what are you currently doing with regards to, or even what have you maybe experimented with and done with regards to RAOA, wholesale, even private label, if you've done any of that?
Sure. I've only done RA and OA. And basically, it was like 100% RA for 2 years. And then, you're at the store and you get this light bulb moment of, oh, wow, even if I buy this full price, I'll still make money on it, right? So maybe you find something on a clearance shelf at your grocery store because they're offloading it because the package is changing or the size is changing or whatever. And it's like, okay, I had a phase there where the light bulb went off. It's like, I'm going to do what I call like RA to OA. Instead of going to stores, I'll just buy this online. And then I kind of went cold turkey when I moved. But even to this day, so now, before I go back, so I was basically 100 RA. Recently, I'm basically 100 OA, but like I can't go to a store grocery shopping and not scan. Like to me, it just doesn't. It's low hanging fruit, and again, I take that information and I apply it to my OA business too. But um, I have a big spot in my heart for RA. I think it's an incredible model. If I was talking to anybody starting, like I would preach to do RA. The margins are fantastic. I can go on and on and on, right? But so all that to say, if you were to put an actual percentage, I might do 5% RA. And occasionally, like I went to my local store, I knew there was a product there that I should scan just from the brand and stuff. I scanned it. Sure enough, it's out of stock everywhere. But there's 50 of them within, a couple hours of me. So that warranted for an RA trip. And then I'll make a shopping list and put some effort into that. But that's kind of the extent. That, or if I'm at the store anyway, I don't really ever go into a store anymore blindly to do RA is kind of the best way I could put it.
That was a question I had to ask was,
Okay.
do you have the ability to walk in a store and not look for things? 'Cause-
Um, yeah,
yeah,
so it's really tough. I will
yeah.
say, I think one point that's changed for me is that and let me preface this. I've done prep and pack for years, and I still do to some degree. But I think I hit a turning point because the other day I was in a store and I found stuff and I could probably make 20, 30 bucks with good ROI, but I was like, I just don't want to prep and pack. I don't want to have to create one small shipment. You know what I mean? But so I don't think that'll ever be taken away. I mean, I'm always like, I'm going to subsidize my groceries while I'm here, right? Even
Mhm.
if even if just for 5 minutes from brands that I'm kind of in the know of, you start to become an expert in certain brands, and you notice on this shelf the one SKU is empty. So it's not unlikely that this eye drop brand might have another one of these that is starting to run out of stock, but it's still here, right? So like that stuff will always pique my interest. Um, so yeah, no, I mean, for the most part, I can't go to a store and not scan.
It is when we talk to people about OA, um, you can't deny how much crossover there can be and
Yes,
how much having experience in one can help you with the other, both ways.
right.
Um, and if you look back at your content, which I've done a lot of recently, you talk, you use the word context clues a lot. And you are
Yes,
always talking about different ways that you get context clues to make decisions on something or to find a lead somewhere else. And so I think that's just, even if you do decide to leave something there, it's still, who knows what that could find you or lead you to or do for you another day. And so I just think that's really cool to point out. Steve and I always joke about that because we inevitably source on date night 100% of the time. And I don't think we ever won't, because when we go home and we're like, we made more money than we spent. Like
right,
you
right.
can't stop that.
I think it's something that is just going to be ingrained with me seriously, like for the rest of my life. And not only that, something I've thought about too is all of us that are in the Amazon game, we essentially know the game of how to buy things for the lowest you can, right? So over the course of my life now, even if Amazon went away tomorrow, I'm going to save tens of thousands of dollars by just being a savvy shopper, you know?
Mhm. That's so true. I'm so much better than I've
Yeah.
ever been.
Yeah.
Let's talk, you kind of touched on this, but to give us a better picture, what is your like setup like? Are you using a prep center? Do you have prep help? Are you obviously aren't doing a ton of prep, yourself anymore. You're being very picky with it. What's that setup of your business look like?
Yeah, so I'm on my third prep center. So I've been selling for 4 years, third one, and I love them. Okay. And that is, I got to be honest, that's really made a big difference in where I stand on this. When I've been with prep centers, to me, time is of the essence with OA a lot, right? And now I'm with a place that every single week I know this day my stuff's going out, and I even have the option for a fee to crank out another one. So if it ever warrants it, that's great. But even one a week, I'm totally cool with that. Um, and that has really given me peace of mind. And because I used to not have the trust in my prep centers to get them out quick enough, so I would do more and more myself. I will say I also have my mom. She lives in Florida. Florida, although not a completely tax-free state, grocery and vitamins and supplements typically are. So I send her that stuff. I send my prep center everything else. And once in a blue moon, when something is just over the top obvious to prep and pack myself, like a good example would be something that's low cost, high volume, very minimal amount of prep attention. So like something that literally you're slapping a sticker on and putting it in a box. So let's say I pay $8 a piece for it, right? If I pay sales tax on that, I'm paying 856 at 7% sales tax. If I send it to my prep center, even if it's $1, let's say I'm paying 50 cents in tax, they're paying $1 for the fee, and I buy 100 of them. Well, that's a $50 difference on something that might take me 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And so I'm not even saying that's clear cut, but at scale, sometimes you can save hundreds of dollars a month for not that much more work. So I've been prepping and packing a lot up until like the last, I'd say 6 months, really this prep center. But that's my current prep and pack. I'm pretty hands off at this point as far as that goes.
Are you willing to share which prep center you've been happy with?
I'm not.
Okay.
So the only reason, like I'm pretty much an open book, but like in a selfish way, like I just don't want to lose that.
Okay, I get it.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know how much more they could take on, and like at the same time, I want to support them, but like I have this place that I'm just like I need to protect this at all costs. So I'm sorry.
No, I get it. Everybody has their things.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the posts or something that I saw said that you are at like a spend in your business that you are comfortable with.
Yes.
And I guess kind of what I want to touch on is you obviously have a number, and so that's where you're comfortable. You don't want to spend more than that. So is that say like I guess I don't know how to ask necessarily what I'm trying to say, but how do you have that with regards to your growth? Like, are you still reinvesting and looking to grow and do bigger revenue and get your profit up with increased revenue? Do you have like maybe secondary goals in just your maintenance of maybe I still want to do this amount, but I hope my profit gets higher because I get better? Like, what is your goal for how your business becomes better,
Yep.
over
Yep.
time?
So actually, I'm going to reference one of your posts that I feel very aligned with. I'm just going off the top of head actually. But basically you were saying you source less and you're making more, and you did it in a fraction of the time, right? That's essentially where I'm at. So a couple things there to unpack. Okay. So for one, I just even before everything with the red restriction incident I had and the brands and the more gating and all this stuff, I have been scaling and reinvesting at a pretty healthy pace for a while. And eventually I just got to this point of to be frank with everyone, like even though I feel I do things the right way, and I feel like if God forbid in a pinch, could I get out of a deactivation or something because I do things the right way? Yes. but I'm spending a lot of money. I mean, I'll just tell you, I don't have no problem sharing it. My spend goal is up to like $50,000 a month. Okay. That's to me, that's a lot of money. And to spend it without the uttermost confidence in the world on a platform is like, it's kind of a crazy concept, you know? But that's a number I'm okay with. That's just where I'm at. And I'll tell you what I've learned by doing that. By having a hard number for the first time, I'm paying myself, I'm taking money out for myself. And I know we'll talk about other stuff where I'll put money outside of this and stuff, but just know that it's always been reinvesting. And then I took an Amazon loan and I was paying them back. And it kind of hit me when I pay this Amazon loan back, and this was paid off last year, rather than give them a check every year, that's a nice, healthy, every month, nice, healthy check. Well, I can at least give myself that. And so that's kind of where I'm at with that. And so I don't want to say I've adopted a profit first mentality by the book, but like I'm definitely at a point that it's not just about throw it all back to Amazon. I'm taking money out, right? Part of that's because that's just what I'm comfortable with. Part of that's a confidence thing in Amazon. Um, and but more than any of that, I think when you give yourself a hard number, a rigid number that, by the way, I can hit that every single month. Like it's like a good number that I have to put in the work. And if I ever am slacking, which doesn't usually happen, like I know I have the skill set to always hit that number. But what happens is when you put yourself, in my opinion, to a number, if you want your profits to increase, your quality of buys has to go up. So the days of I'm going to buy 30 of this marginal product are gone. I'm going to buy 10 of this great one and 10 of this great one and 10 of this great one. And if it means I don't get to spend my money as quickly and I have to put in more work, then that's what I have to do. And so for me, it's worked. I really like it. I'm mentally comfortable with the number. I can achieve it, but it's still challenging. And it forces me to get better at sourcing as opposed to just throwing more and more money at the same ROI. Now I'm going to spend less money at higher ROI, less risk, and essentially no less profit. So that's kind of like my thought process there.
That in preparation for today,
Yep.
I shared to the group a couple Instagram posts of yours that like I had saved over time.
Sure.
And one of them, a common question is with regards to like the capital crunch, right? Like I don't have enough money to buy all the things that I could buy. And one of the posts that I shared of yours was with regards to, you know, if I spend this much at 30% ROI, I would have to do, or if I spend this much at 40% ROI, I would have to spend this much to achieve it with 30% ROI,
Yes.
and how you kind of like unlock the power of some capital that you don't otherwise have if you just, you know, tighten up the buying criteria. And yeah, it's something we talk a lot about. And I just thought you had a really good perspective on it. So thank you for that.
Thank you. And I just want to add one more thing too. Like think of the long-term benefits of forcing yourself, to, you put in, this is such like a compounding game. And like, if you have to spend more time sourcing and diversifying your buys more, like long-term, you're going to get feedback on so many more products over the big scheme of things. So like, if you have the patience for it, to me, it's like such a net gain over the long period.
A question that I should have clarified a second ago. Do you have any VAs?
Okay. Yeah, no, I don't. I never have. So it's kind of I'm, I'm kind of bullish on this for me. For me, like to me, sourcing is so far and above the most important task of Amazon. Like it's not even close. Like nothing is even close. So to me, and if I got to a point that I just said I spent 50. If I was buying incredibly quality stuff and I had 2 weeks left in the month and I hit 50, maybe, right? But like I have this thought just that a VA is only going to be a fraction of you. And you have to be really good in order to explain to them what it is they need to do. And sourcing is the name of the game. So I think it could make a sense for a lot of people. I'm not knocking it as a blanket thing, but for me, I think being, I source, to give you context, essentially every day. really hyper focused, but only 2 to 3 hours a day. And like, I enjoy that. I genuinely do. I do it very early in the morning when like there's nothing else I'd be doing at those hours. And so I'm rambling here, but long story short, I don't, and I can't see it for my business, to be very honest with you. I can't see outsourcing the most important task that I'm really good at. Everything else I could see before that. But that for me, at this point in my journey, I'm not there yet.
We feel the same,
Yeah.
and have never ventured into the VA thing. Um, and it's because I feel like part of it is I am constantly teaching myself out of nowhere, or figuring out, I guess is a better way of saying it, like
Right.
a different out of the box way to make something work and make sense and be profitable. And not only do I have to be a great sourcer, I have to be a good teacher to whoever I would bring on. And I'm
Right.
not confident I would be. I know I'm a good sourcer. I'm not confident I could teach them well. Um, and so that's where I struggle. And I wish I was better at that, because I'm envious of people who have found and created relationships that are with
Yeah.
good VAs. Um, but it just doesn't feel like a fit for us.
Yeah, I mean, and let me add on to that, for one, even if I mean, if some people have VAs buying, that's a different thing. But if a VA is presenting me with a list, well, I'm part of an awesome leads list. And because I'm good at sourcing, I already have a list to go through. And I know that if this is one variation presented, go where the eyeballs aren't, for instance, and I'll look at a different variation, right? And just that's one random example, but so I do have a daily list that I'm seeing to go through, and frankly, I can't imagine a leads list, or excuse me, a VA even being much better than that. And I don't have to manage, I don't have to pay, or I mean, I pay, but like I don't have to go through a training process. So I know Amazon's not a one size fits all, and that's why I'll never throw a blanket statement out there. But yeah, for me, frankly, it's validating that you feel the same way. But I think with Amazon it skews it could skew very young, especially in the social world. And I think regardless of age, people are very, very, very drawn to passive income. And I just think in reality, I think you can put in hard work and work 2, 3 hours a day in your Amazon business and do very, very well. But I don't categorize it as passive. I think the most passive part of Amazon is that when you find good products, you get to usually buy them in the future, not every day necessarily, but like, you just, I always say a percentage of your catalog will probably always be profitable. So as you build and build your catalog, that percentage or that quantity of that percentage will also only increase. And that to me is the real passive part of Amazon, is that when a new sale comes on, you don't have to find the products. You already know the ones, you add to the cart and you're out. That's like the most passive, how I think of it, at least.
Mhm. Let's talk about the leads listing for a second.
Yeah.
So, because I think that's something people wonder a lot, especially if they want to be all OA, or if they're speaking to someone who does a lot of OA. Have you, like, I guess I just kind of want to know what the experience has been. Have you tried a bunch of leads lists and eventually found the one? Do you stay on them for years? Do you kind of hop on, learn new sources, learn new brands, and try different ones? Do you buy what's on the list often, if ever? Or is it always kind of rabbit trailing? That's
Yeah.
like 10 questions there, it
No,
feels
no,
like.
it's all I got him. I got them all. So no, I have so okay, let me full disclosure here. I've only been a customer of one leads list. I love it. And I was someone that was skeptical of leads list, okay? Um, and I will say, because I just want to be very transparent, um, I was presented to like be a partner in a leads list, and that didn't really materialize. And it was a learning lesson. Not that anyone was like shady or anything even remotely close to that. It just didn't pan out. But as far as just from a customer perspective, I've only had one, and I'm someone that was skeptical. I was like, conceptually, this doesn't make sense. A lot of people get the list. Why would anything not tank, right? But what I've come to realize is it's truly what you make of it. And what I mean by that and why I love my leads list is because I'm at a point, and I'm just speaking to me, frankly, I'm very good at sourcing. If you give me a sale going on, if you give me a brand, I'll know how to run with OA and keep a product finder, out of stock searches, no sales rank searches, decreasing seller count, increasing buy box, Amazon to Amazon, and all these other nuances. I'm pretty well versed in keep a product finder. And I say all that to say what happens is the leads list, if nothing else, provides me with vetted new brands. It opens my eyes to current site sales going on that given day. And once in a blue moon, I shouldn't even say a blue moon. Some of them just at face value make sense. Now, I never go super deep on a leads list, on a literal product, but what I love is, okay, here's a lead that takes me to a site that's maybe like the site is the brand itself. It's a beauty brand. All they sell is their own brand. So like not Sephora, but Clinique, right? Just as a bad example, but since it doesn't matter. And so I get to Clinique, and today I know there's a 30% off sale. So like I said, I'm going to run all these different Keep Up Product Finder searches, but I might have not even known that was going on today unless it was for the leads list. Also, me personally, I keep an ongoing list of every brand that I know I'm allowed to sell. And so I'm always being introduced to new brands every single day on the leads list, and they're already vetted and they are noted. Does IP alert come up? Are we allowed to sell this? So it already has a layer of filtering as it gets down to me. Then I love, like I was mentioning earlier, a variation is presented. Okay. So whether I buy that one or not, maybe, but I'm going to look at the other variations, because when there's smoke, there's fire. And most people that aren't well versed are just going to look at the list literally. So to me, the list itself, if I make my money back, great. If I make a couple of bucks, great. It's about the brand introduction, the variations, and the rabbit trails that come with it. The literal buying straight from the list is very small.
Okay. There's so many directions I could go. Let's talk about kind of like your schedule real quick, and then that's going to lead to another question related to what you just said.
Sure.
So as a mostly OA schedule, like what you've already said, it's kind of like 3 hours a day.
Yeah.
What is your schedule like? Do you find that it's pretty consistent, like day to day, week to week, or does it kind of like ebb and flow with maybe like opportunities or sales, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so I would say it's very consistent. So I have a 1.5-year-old child. So for me, the only guaranteed time I have in a day is like from 5 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. So like I can't miss that, Now, I'm not saying I don't get more time throughout the day, but like that is my guaranteed uninterrupted. So I usually wake up pretty early, I work out, and then I actually go to a local coffee shop and I source there. I really, really like being in a new environment. There's no laundry, there's no distractions, there's no baby waking up early. It's just me and there every day. And I'm pretty much sourcing from 6:30 to 9:30 essentially every day. Now, I'm sure like a lot of sellers, I'm always buying new things. So I'm always seeing what has been checked in and recently has sold. And I have like real simple, I have a notepad with me or on my phone if I have to, but I always have an ongoing list of things, if not to buy, to make sure I'm looking into, right? And then you start doing this for so long, you know that on Fridays, this site, typically once a month, that's when they have their deepest discount going on. So there's some that just becomes, I know this isn't like, it's not tactical, but it becomes intuitive. You just kind of have a gut. But from the leads list, from things that I'm always test buying and sending in new stuff, and new things are being checked in and sold, or if you have an abnormally, high velocity of an item, I have so many products that I always have things to reevaluate and to look into. And I also try to set myself up on a platter to always have a starting point. I hate opening my computer and going, what am I doing? Right? Here's 20 items or 20 things that I could be looking into, things like that. And then if I ever do get to a point where you hit a block or whatever. Well, that's where I typically go to keep a product finder, and I'm going through all of the brands I've sold, and maybe today I'm going to do an out of stock search. I'm going to do a no sales rank. Some of the ones I mentioned. I know this new product that I'm selling is a really unique listing that probably not many people understand the chart. So let me see what other sellers are selling this, and let me look at their storefront and keep a product finder. So, I mean, at this point in the game, I'll never have a day where I'm just stuck. I also don't have like a set rigid, hey, Mondays I look at this site, Tuesday this site. It just becomes natural. And also because I'm at a point where my spend is obtainable, and it's realistic, like I understand, like I don't get caught up in there's infinite opportunity out there. But as long as I hit my 50K spend at an ROI I want, that's all that matters. And I've just kind of come to learn that, I always want to be diversifying, but there's also something to be said about being an expert. And I think there's a fine line. And so there's a little bit of like controlled chaos is the best way I'd put it.
Yeah, I get that. Is that 3 hours all sourcing, or is that all Amazon? So if you have account health, or if you have bookkeeping, or if you have
Yeah.
any of those other things that come up, does it include that too?
That's primarily sourcing. I've never have a problem finding time for the other stuff, and for me, I'm just a morning person, so that's when I'm at my best. So to me, it makes sense that my highest value task for Amazon is what's getting my morning attention. Because the afternoon come 3 p.m., like my brain's mush. So it's like I can send an email, but I don't want to have to like run a bunch of numbers and go through charts and pay attention. So yeah, and I make sure to block off time because Amazon, although it's not the same every week, I like to always build in contingency and cushion, or else you kind of get flustered. Like I know setting aside a couple hours on a Wednesday or a Friday, whatever, is never going to hurt. I'm always due for a reprice. I'm always due to remove some inventory. I'm always due to handle account health. I check that daily, and then, but stuff like that. So that time though is primarily sourcing, and then I pencil in and find time for everything else. But again, back to what I said, sourcing to me is by far the most important. So I want to give it my best hours.
Do you use tactical arbitrage?
I don't. I don't have anything against it. I just never mastered it. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that I think like any software, if you know how to use it, in order to get results that other people don't get, you have to be doing things and understand it better than those people. So if you're willing to put in the time and the effort, I'm sure a lot of people crush it with tactical arbitrage. I'm not one of them.
Mhm. If you probably don't know the answer to this, but if you had to guess,
Yeah.
how that sourcing time, what's kind of like the ratio of the leads list and reviewing that stuff and chasing leads from that
Mhm.
versus your own, here's the brand's website sales,
Yeah.
I know, and I want to manually dig into from my own, from my own brain.
Yeah, no, so I basically save the leads list for my last sourcing bit of the day. It's pretty quick for me. Because again, I'm not really buying much literally from it. And I think it's worth noting, I go through every single item because I'm so in tuned. Like there might be an item on there that right now doesn't make sense, but to me it's very obvious. The seller count's going down, 3 sites are out of stock on it. So if I can get my hands on it, just because it's on the leads list, like I'm not going to spite it, right? I'm not going to spite myself but just from a time perspective, I find that if I spend 3 hours, that might get 20 minutes. And
Okay.
I also find towards the end of that, again, like my peak quality sourcing is starting to diminish a little bit. And that is a little bit less, the ball's already in motion. It's not starting from scratch. So that's my last thing I do before I leave.
Okay. So you've been at this for 4 years,
Mhm.
not all OA that whole time. So I realize that, but
Right.
and you made a comment that you very rarely feel stuck at this point. You pretty much always feel like you have a starting point or you know where you can go dig in.
Yeah.
How long have you felt like that? Because obviously you didn't feel that way when you first started OA.
No, not even close. I think last year it's probably I think it's probably been about a year. So it took me a whole year into OA. But to be honest, I remember thinking that, but also, even though I still feel that way now, the quality of my buys now are so much better than they were a year ago, right? So, but I will say it takes a long time. It takes a long time to to go relatively deep on a product that is a unique Keepa chart, right? Or maybe that you haven't actually bought before, but there's so many context clues like the brand, other variations, you know that it's out of stock and it's hard to get. Like all of these things, there's so much delayed gratification with the sourcing, I find. And so, but yeah, to answer your question, probably in the last year is when the first time it's like, I can open my computer any day, and if I have the time, I can hit whatever reasonable spend I need to hit without sacrificing the quality of the products.
Do you have a do you have like Amazon friends, like a little group that you share like leads and will like bounce that kind of stuff if you're on the fence about something, which inevitably always happens sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you have people that you do that with?
Yeah, I have a couple. Uh, I have quite a few like Amazon friends that like I can ask anything from account health to whatever, or just like, random stuff. Um, and you know, uh, it's not very much, but like it's not as much as people may think. I mean, I certainly share leads with people. It's like I think it's something that honestly, like you just get into your own groove more, but like it's really beneficial to share leads, like really beneficial. But I'm kind of a lone wolf in the sourcing regard. I definitely share leads. Don't get me wrong, but like it's not like a drastic part of my business.
When I think about, we have, Steve Tracy and I started out in like this little mastermind that was larger. There's other people in it
Yeah.
too. And there still is other people that aren't part of the village, but they're in our little mastermind. And we get asked about that a lot. And right now I'm just thinking like sharing leads used to be such a larger part of it when we first became friends and were together. And for what, like, that was how we became friends and how we started trusting each other. And when I really think about now, I don't feel like we do that hardly at all now, because we've all kind of found our own little things that we like. It's more sometimes I'll like send something and I'll be like, am I crazy? Like this feels too good to be true. So like, what
Right.
am I
Yeah.
like? I just need someone to check me. Um, or sometimes it'll be something really good that we can't buy all of, and we want our friends to help us run a website out of stock because that will happen too.
Yep, yep. No, that sounds very similar, honestly. I think it's not even like it's not like a hoarding type of thing where it's like, oh, I'm trying to like keep it all for myself. It's just like, I've kind of found my lane, you found your lane, and it's like, whatever. And then I think there's something to keep in mind too with sharing leads. Um, I think it's very human nature that like you want a level of equal reciprocity, right? And everybody treats Amazon differently and has different things going on. But like if I'm in the trenches every day, 3 hours, like I don't want to share my best lead necessarily if it's like what I get back in return is a watered down version. Now, for the record, like I'm not saying that's necessarily what I experienced, but I've just understood that like sometimes it's more valuable to just keep your best ones than to water that down in the name of gaining one more, right? And because keep in mind, if that person, first off, you have to have tremendous trust, but like, everyone could see everyone's storefronts. So like you're not just putting it out to one person, you're putting it out to anybody that is keeping tabs on that person's potentially. So yeah, but I would say though, for earlier on in the journey, if you can link up with someone at a similar pace, similar expectations, you're essentially doubling your output, or could be, for no extra time. I would say this I would say with 100% certainty. I, I guess I shouldn't say 100%, but I would much, much more recommend to a friend get a sourcing buddy and share leads than get a VA. I mean, someone that knows Amazon in and out, you don't have to train them, you don't have to pay them, you can run stuff by each other, you have camaraderie. Like to me, that is a great solution if you find the right person.
I agree. Um, I'm gonna ask David Prochaska on Instagram. He posts, I can't think of what his Instagram handle is right now because he's changed it recently.
Yeah.
If you're on here, sorry, David.
I
But
love David,
he,
by the way. I'm very friendly with him.
yeah, okay. So he made a question, or he was talking about maybe if you could talk a little bit about pivoting your sourcing with the brands hard gating out of nowhere. And he said he's also gotten a lot better at sourcing. How has your sourcing grown and developed over the past 2 years?
Yeah, so it's funny. The red restriction stuff, it's a pain in the butt in the short term, but in a weird way, I feel really good about it in the sense that it reminded me that if you know how to find products, you know how to find products. And I definitely know how to find products. And it might take me a little bit more time to catch right back up, but you become sometimes a little complacent with some of your brands. It's like, I could buy this every couple weeks, every couple months, a good ROI, but maybe not great, this and that. But it was kind of a booster for my own self because those are off the table. Well, I have to fill them with something else. So I'm gonna great point going to the ongoing list of the brands that I have, right? Or ongoing list of storefronts that I have. And all and so basically, you hit a spend, whether you do that on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and it's just like, okay, well, that's off the table. I have to fill that up somehow. So how am I going to do that? Well, for me, I hit keep a product finder. I use all my brands, all my searches, all my storefronts, and it's just a good reminder. Very quickly after that, I was like, I always forget there's infinite profitable inventory. Maybe not infinite. There's so much profitable inventory out there. We all get accustomed to routines and brands and stuff, but it made me realize that I can always replace one brand with the next. The skill set doesn't go away, the determination doesn't go away, the discipline doesn't. Small setback. As far as evolution over time, um, I know I keep saying this, but like I love Keep a Product Finder. It is just such a great tool, especially if you know what you're doing. You can just filter it down to look for, I love out of stock items. I love, I've mentioned that a couple of times, um, and so I guess it used to be more probably I had a lot of discipline, manual sourcing and stuff. When you don't have brands and storefronts, you have to do that stuff. But once you build that up, then you can kind of just plug away a couple brands here, a couple storefronts there, different filters, to show me in front of me prime products that if I can find them, they're going to make money. So um, I don't think so much has changed. I do think too, though, that the more you do it, the more confidence you have and the less settling that you have to do. And so you put that 25% ROI item aside, knowing the 40% is right around the corner, just using some random numbers as an example.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna sidestep for a second. I should have asked, do you have a hard stop on this? Because we are almost about,
No, no,
okay.
whenever.
All right, so let's keep on that sourcing topic then real quick, because I feel like when I look back through your posts, I think it is so evident that you are a very creative sourcer. Are you willing to, like, maybe you can think of some that you are willing to share, some like out of the box ways that you make things better or just do things that other people don't think to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I, I always think that some you're always going to create a natural moat if you can do things that other people don't do or don't know how to do, right? So they're not willing to do it or they don't know how to do it. As far as not willing to do it, um, you know, packing and prepping yourself. packing glass, packing just in general. Like it's everyone talks about that should be the first thing you outsource. You're better than packing and prepping, and like like you hear that all the time. And so to me, I would say, okay, great. If if everyone doesn't want to do that, that's opportunity for me. Um, I I think trying to think here. I can give like an example of like a keep a product finder search that I do that like creates to me like a viral sense of unlimited finding, right? And so well, I guess let me step back 1 second. Another thing is putting in the time and effort to understand atypical charts and not only understand them, then seek them out. Okay. I find no sales rank items are very much more steady price because less competition, less sellers, things like that, right? So that's one random example. And if you can stack a couple things, even better. So a no sales rank, that's a bundle. Awesome, right? A no sales rank bundle, that's a very hard to get seasonal item, even better. And with each layer, you're just creating a bigger and bigger and bigger moat, okay? As far as like an example of an awesome Keepa product finder search. So for anybody not familiar, instead of just saving the link to somebody's storefront, you can actually, everyone has a code. I think it typically starts with an A, okay? And like you can go in to Keep a Product Finder and you can add, let's just say 10 different storefronts. There's a place in there to do that. And I wouldn't even and I wouldn't just pick 10 randoms. I would pick a product that I know is a really good product. And I would see the other sellers on it that have a review count that is telling me they're doing RA or OA. Okay. So like maybe a couple hundred max, maybe 1,000 max, give or take. Sweet spot would be like 100 to 300, let's say. And so so now I have the storefronts of them and I've grouped them together. So it's not one by one by putting it in Keep a Product Finder. So we're looking at a product that I've already qualified. I've already qualified these sellers. Now we're going to put them in Keep a Product Finder. And now we're going to get a list of all of their products. And I can filter those down to be no sales rank, out of stock, decreasing seller count. And now this is better than just a random storefront because I've already qualified them. They're already selling on a great listing. I've already qualified that they're an OA seller. And now I've taken their products and I filtered those down to be advantageous at the time. So I'm kind of just giving you a glimpse of like how I kind of approach the evergreen items that are out there. Like it's just kind of thinking like that. Like how do I do something different? What makes logical sense to me? What are most people probably not doing? This would be something easier to show sometime, but I hope that can at least paint the picture of just like understanding I'm becoming very knowledgeable in atypical charts, and then B, I'm seeking them out.
Mhm. That's really good. I think people really like the idea of storefront stocking. And I think sometimes it's a struggle beyond just opening their storefront and scrolling through and looking at it, like
Yes.
knowing what to actually do with it and how to pursue,
Right.
kind of like take it to the next step. I'm going to interject here real quick because what made me write this question was you did a post on Instagram about freebies in the beauty category.
Yeah.
And I did a post the other day in the village, like would you buy this? And I put something on Bobbi Brown that was basically a break even product. And I think most people in the poll said no, they were not going to buy it. And I told you guys that I would clarify why I would buy this tonight. But just so you know, that break even product came with 4 freebies, 2 of which were full size. One of which I think the buy box was like $46. I want to say the profit was like high 30s. The other one, there was like an $8 one, an $8 one, and then the other one was maybe in like the 20 some dollars. And yeah, I ended up, I think my overall ROI for the purchase ended up being like 70%. And that's like there's other things too, but that's like
I
my
love that.
favorite one because no matter how much I talk about it, it doesn't get worse.
Yep.
Um,
I love
and it
it.
just made me think of it.
No, I've done that many a times, and something that I think about too is that let's say it's a full size freebie. So like you said, break even, right? Full size freebie makes you a good chunk or whatever. But also it's one full size freebie for every $100 you spend. So I'm not going to do a $500 purchase. I'm going to do five $100 purchases. That might seem like just common sense, but like I think it's easy to overlook that, especially, and that goes back to just putting in reps. If you're confident in a site, knowing that you can do that 5 times. When you're new,
Mhm.
you don't know that you can get through five different orders, right? So no, I love that. Good for you. I think that's
Yeah.
awesome. I
And
play
it
that
was
game too.
12% cash back too.
Yeah. No,
So
you
put
said
that
all
on
of that
top.
combined. And look, that proves your theory that people aren't doing that because they all said no, right?
I know. Well, I literally wrote that. I was like, you guys, like,
Yeah.
talk about this.
Yeah. Totally.
Um, okay, so your most recent post, and this was following the hard gating stuff and
Yeah.
following the little bit of the shift to Walmart, all that kind of stuff, was about kind of like the reality that you think of Amazon as a job, and it may be a really good job and a job you have a lot of control
Yes.
over, but that it is not something that's ever going to be sold. It is not something you will ever have complete, total, 100% pure confidence in.
Yeah.
And I agree with a lot of what you said surrounding that topic. I think the bigger our Amazon business gets, the more I have to remember that and face that. Um, can you give us some kind of like thoughts as to like why you feel that way, or how that, I mean, maybe it's the spend goal. You kind of already said this, but just
Yeah.
how that makes you treat Amazon a little differently?
Yeah, totally. So yes. First thing, let me preface with this. I stand by what I said, and I'm going to elaborate on that. But I think also sometimes and this could be an example of it. I so want to drive home a point to people because I really care about people understanding the realities, that it could almost be on the extreme side of it because there's so much stuff out there that's fluff and it's just not realistic and it's not, and whatever. So the reason I feel that way is because, like you mentioned, and like I mentioned in the post, I kind of feel like it's a hybrid. And what I mean by that is, on paper, you have to be a business, like legally, entity wise, taxes wise, right? You have write-offs and perks like that of a business. And I think mentally, more than anything else, you have to treat it like a business if you want to have real success. So in that regard, yes. But what I do mean, and you alluded to, is that essentially every other business that I think of, if I was to do $1 million in sales, there would be somebody that would probably be willing to buy my business for a multiple of my profit or whatever the thing is. And that is unequivocally not happening with my arbitrage business. Nobody's coming to give me, I don't think, anything for my arbitrage business, right? And so that's what I mean by that. And that if you stop sourcing, your money stops being made. Whereas in a business, in theory, if I take a month off and I have people and staff in place, I should still be making money. Okay. So the buying and the turning off the valve are kind of my two biggest things. And I don't say, and you know what? It's the best job I've ever had when I put it that way. I'm the boss. And because I've put in so much time, I can achieve full-time income on 3 hours of sourcing a day, right? And I've such autonomy over my schedule and so many great things. Um, but I also say that because we did talk about the spend, but let me put it this way. If I had the utmost confidence that I wasn't going to wake up one day and be one of the horror stories, which, by the way, I'm not somebody to paint that picture. Like, I don't lose sleep over it per se, but I'm just a realist too. And like, you have to mitigate risk a little bit. But if I had the utmost confidence, like what if this happened when I had 100K worth of red restricted inventory? I don't know what I would do, right? So it's just stuff like that. And I have the skill set that if I did have that confidence, I would go for 100K and I would reinvest because the ROI on this, I think, is so much better than so many other things. But at the same time, like, you know, it's Amazon's business and we're participants, we're our own business participating. It's not my platform that I'm participating, so I know exactly what's going to happen, right? And so that's kind of where I'm at. It's not to discourage people and it's not to put it down. I've always kind of known this is what you signed up for. Um, but I think it's the type of thing you can make good money and then you can park it elsewhere if you so choose. Or the opposite, like a business, just to show they both have pros and cons. You don't pay yourself, you don't take money, but then maybe you have an exit one day, right? There's no one way to do it. And that's why I'm not trying to say a job in necessarily like a negative sense, but um if I knew what I knew now, let me put it this way. I probably would have gone to private label from day one so that, because if I put in this much blood, sweat, and tears in 4 years, it'd be sweet to be able to exit right now, or in a year from now, and that day will never come and make money along the way, by the way. But hindsight's 2020, and it is what it is. Like I still think it's an amazing, amazing opportunity. Amazing.
Mhm.
But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm a little bit, I'm just a little um I'm just slightly hesitant because of this firsthand experience, and I do things by the book, by the way. 99.9% of the time, at least always to my knowledge, for the most part. And so yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, so to add to that, really good opportunity, and I think what you say and what you said there is very realistic and very, like matter of fact. I never seem to find you negative with regards to that kind of stuff. In fact, I think you are the opposite.
Right.
When everybody else is like chicken little about the ungatings and the low inventory fees and Clinique is gone and all these other things that have happened in the last couple months, I feel like you typically come on and post something that is very, yes, this sucks.
Yeah.
Here's what we do now. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And I think, at least I know Steve and I feel like this, the opportunity that Amazon provides with regards to how big it is and the velocity and who we can reach will, I think, kind of like always way outweigh these little things we have to deal with. Um, how do you feel with regards to that? Like all the new negative changes that come up and all the, I mean, it is getting harder. It is harder now
Yeah.
than it was 4 years ago, but then we're still here.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Um, First off, thank you for noticing that, and I'm glad it comes across that way, and that's genuinely how I feel. I mean, I'm just very big on you control what you can control. Am I going to stop selling on Amazon? No. Okay. There is no point then of wasting time complaining, right? I mean, like truthfully. So you adjust, right? Those brands are gone. I put in the time, the effort, and I'll put them elsewhere. And now I know that I'm not going to buy, I'm not going to go deep. I'm going to go wider again, and that's where I'm at. And you know what? Long term, that's probably going to be beneficial for me. And yeah, I mean, it definitely becomes harder. But something else I want people to keep in mind too, just to give an example, right? Um, just recently in like during COVID, basically, if you bought a house today, it went up in value by tomorrow, right? And just because something was over the top extraordinary, and now let's say it's 25% less extraordinary, it doesn't mean it's not still great. And that's where I'm at. And frankly, I feel like I'm glad I got in when I did because I'm very well versed. Um, and another thing I think worth pointing out, at least for myself, if Amazon goes away tomorrow, this has really, really been a good learning lesson for myself, proving to myself that like I just go with the flow and I figure it out. And there's so many applicable business skills from Amazon that I could probably, or any Amazon seller could apply to a lot of things. I think of house flipping a lot. It's the same thing, like on a very different scale. You know, you're buying low, you're selling high, you're understanding what it's going to sell for relative, you know, you build in contingency, et cetera. But yeah, you know, you control what you can control. And I am just so in tune. I think a lot of people, this is their first business venture. And I have some experience outside of this. And so I realize like it doesn't go over my head that we're piggybacking on $1 trillion brand, their delivery trucks, their staff, their shelves, their website, like everything. And you can start tomorrow for $500. If you don't like it, go open your own retail store and tell me how that goes, you know, or open your own e-commerce store and tell me how that goes. Like you're not like entitled to anything. And if it gets to a point in time, it doesn't make sense, so be it. In my mind, this is a sprint. And whether that's a 3-year sprint from now, a 5-year, a 10-year, 15, I don't know. I'm going to ride it until the wheels fall off, however long it makes sense.
I can't help but laugh because I know Steve is upstairs right now, like, yes, yes, like echoing every single
Yeah,
word that you say so strongly.
cool.
Um, okay. So speaking of like making, yeah, I've said that a zillion times. Yes. Um, okay, so with regards to, we're still going to do Amazon because it's amazing and why would we not?
Yes.
But on the back end, we also want to make sure that we're doing things for ourselves to be set up to know that we are okay should the worst case scenario happen. So you have talked a little bit about like real estate and wanting to um, participate in that in some capacity. A lot of people that we talk to have an interest in that someday when they have the money to do so. Some people already
Yes.
are doing it. Um, are you already in that? Like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, so I'm not actively in it. That is, so when I was younger, I did like live-in flips, right? So I bought them low, they were beat up in my 20s. I was living on a mattress in a beat up house, fixed it up, sold it a couple of times. Fast forward a couple of years, I look back and I'm just like, wow, if I just held on to those, I'd be real pretty right now, right? And hindsight's 2020, it's all that. But also the world's changed, social media's changed, and I've absorbed so much more information. And so to me, this is kind of the vision is that for one, this business of mine here, I'm growing. We have multiple locations, and I'd like to franchise and grow that. So that's one diversification in just a different business, right? But ideally, I would like to eventually talk about equity, sell it maybe one day. Let me put it this way: when I have the capital, to me, the safest and most like sure bet way to be well off down the road is to buy real estate investment properties. Buy it, not get concerned about the interest rate, not get concerned about buying at the perfect time at a number. You have to run numbers, of course. You have tenants that pay down the mortgage, you build in for vacancy, repairs, etc. So they cover all the expenses. You're gaining equity on that end because they're paying down the mortgage. On the other end, real estate always goes up. Now, on the way up, it might go down along the way, the same way that if somebody was on a 100-pound weight loss journey, it's not going to always show less on the scale every single day. There's ups and downs along the way, but they're heading in that direction. And I'm bullish on that. And historically, I think I'm factually correct. And so long term holding that, what I want to do is whenever I have excess, park it into that. And then if I ever need cash, hopefully there's enough equity one day or this and that. But that's why I also love Amazon because it's also active income, right? And that's like what I like about it too. So I'm not there yet. I have some experience with it, but like that's where I want to be. It's just for this one, I've been reinvesting a lot and growing it. So with time, that is the why I'm pulling out money for Amazon more than I am and stopping my spend is because that money I pull out, I'm trying to have it readily available for when that opportunity presents itself, and then I'm ready to like take that next step.
Mhm. That's awesome. That's something I very much share that thought process. Steve struggles with it a little bit, although he's become a little more open. But we have looked at stuff recently,
Yeah.
which, is new for us. But we have that, you know, um, that's going to tie up how much money for our down payment. versus Amazon's so good. So
I know, I get it. I
yeah,
get
it's
it.
always that.
I
Um,
absolutely get it, especially at your guys' level. It's it's if I mean I'm flabbergasted. Like I know,
I
you're right.
know.
It's
There's no
great.
right
It's
answer. That's the thing.
yeah,
Like it's, you
yeah,
know.
I get it.
I'm gonna ask, and this is if you're willing to share. Dang was asking if you would share which brands went restricted for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So new chapter, Nature's Bounty, Nature's Made, Highlands, Puritan's Pride. For me, a little before this, Garden of Life, Rainbow Light. Um, and so I think that's all that comes to mind. Um, yeah, I think that's all that comes to mind for me. Um, my 2 cents is like, who knows? But if you're selling any of those, don't go too deep unless you're prepared to, have to sell them elsewhere type of thing.
Okay, so that kind of answered the ignorant question I was going to ask. But so they
Okay.
went red restricted for you, not
Yeah.
for, yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. They went red restricted for me, but talk about having friends and connections. So I posted something in my story, like, what does anyone know what's going on? And so somebody said, well, you basically like, dude, you got to check your emails. And I'm like, no, I'm going through them all. And then somebody else was like, I know somebody that got an email for all of these brands. And like, there was a list of like 100. And I know people that got none. And I fell into that category. And, I try getting an answer from Amazon. That's one of my biggest gripes is like to have so much money tied up with Amazon and that much inventory on red restricted that it's so bad that I'd rather have the inventory sent to my house and figure it out than take years of my life off because of that's something with Walmart I have liked a lot is I feel like their seller support is higher, by the way, at least the small sample size I have. But those are them. I do think quite a few people have at least some of those red restricted. And I know people that are selling all of those though. So we just
Mhm.
chalk that up to Amazon.
Yeah, Steve just said in the comments that we're restricted in about half of them.
I saw
And then he
that.
did want to clarify, so they didn't allow your sell-through on ones that you were
No,
already in stock on.
nope. Everything went inactive basically at an identical time. And what happened was my prep center had them and they said, hey, they messaged me about one, then two. I was like, what the heck's going on? And then next thing I know, I'm like, going through it. But
Um, okay, so I have two more questions. They're
cool.
kind of back on the sourcing thing.
Sure.
And then we'll wrap up a little bit and kind of like talk about some of your content and where people can find you.
Sounds good.
Um, so one of the most common questions, period, is how do I find replens? I want a replen based business. How do I go out and find replens?
Yeah.
Um, I'm just gonna let you go ahead
Yeah.
and give
Yeah.
what you would say to that.
Totally. I think it's a major misconception, especially for early on. Um, when I was new and I heard this and I thought that was like the name of the game. What am I missing, right? What am I missing? And as I got more experience and built confidence, I wasn't missing anything. Um, do I think there's some people that have products that they can buy any day of the week off the shelf and make money on? Yes, yes, of course. But those are far and few between. My strategy and my advice and my mentality on it is just go out there and find good quality products day in and day out. I always like to use the analogy. I step up to the plate and I try to hit singles. Inevitably, sometimes I'll hit doubles, triples, home runs, grand slams, etc. But if I don't step up to the plate, none of it's going to happen. Okay. So just hit your singles is kind of how I look at it. And the reason for this, to give you some more information behind it, from my experience, essentially every product is cyclical. So it has a good time to buy, it has a bad time to buy, and everywhere in between, great, horrible, okay, etc. So if I buy it today and it's great, doesn't mean it's going to be great tomorrow for most products. And the day after that, it might mean, first off, let's eliminate replenishable in the term of like day in and day out purchasing. There can be a site that you can buy from 3 times a year, but you have a long list of when that sale comes on. That's when you're going to buy that product. And that might be the only 3 times a year that it makes sense to do that. It's you're replenishing, but it's not in the sense of the way that the word is used all the time. So for me, the strategy is this: fill my catalog with as many high quality products as I can. And my mentality is a percentage of those at any given time will be at the right time to buy. So let's just say 10%, which actually I think to be kind of realistic, maybe a little less. Let's say I have 100 products in stock or in my catalog. Well, at any given time of the year, probably 10 of them will be good. Not necessarily the same ones at the same time of the year. If I have 1,000 in stock, well, that means 100 of my products will be a good time to buy. If I have 10,000, I'll have 1,000, and so on and so forth. I am so bullish on just find good inventory and everything else will fall into place. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. I think that's one of those traps a lot of us fall into when you're new, and then you kind of realize, like, what am I doing wrong? And it's not that you're doing anything wrong. It's just very, very hard. Amazon's very competitive. If it was that easy, that would be the norm.
Mhm. I feel maybe you'll have the same memory since we did start at the same time, but Replen's based business was very much the buzzword of January, February, March 2021.
Yeah.
It felt like that's when and I think it's because we were coming out of COVID. So like
Yeah.
that's like it's all like grocery and you can buy all these consumable stuff and it just the same thing over and over. I shared that with we felt like we were doing it wrong. We didn't have this Replen's based business where it was just automatic. And speaking of automatic, because everybody wants everything to be, they want to automate all of it.
Right.
When you have those 10% that are good, is it finally automatic then? Like, can you just know, like, oh, this sale just came back up and I can just go ahead and buy it and I'm good to go. I don't have to do any more than that. Or is there still a process there?
I mean, for me, there's a process, like, just because basically you always need to double check where you're at in the cycle of that product. So, and I've talked about this earlier, I might be able to buy it at the lowest I can ever buy this for, but it's irrelevant if there's every other, if 50 other sellers have jumped on this since my last time going through this sale. Or if I'm buying it right at the horrible time as the amount of sellers is skyrocketing, and conversely, the price is going down. And if I just ignore that because I know this has worked before, or because it's the lowest, I like to say, think of like a very extreme example, Nike. If you go to a Nike product you go to the first page of their website, and let's say it's 90% off, right? So you're getting this for pennies on the dollar. But everyone else is too, so it doesn't matter, It's not just the price, it's the price relative to your competition and other layers and factors as well. And that's to that point, like, you can't just buy blindly because it once worked. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed to work again. Now, would I make a point to look at that product? Absolutely. But again, just because it worked once at one point in time, and it doesn't mean it won't work tomorrow, by the way, and it doesn't mean it won't work for buying it at a higher price in a month from now. But you have to really paint a picture of like what's going on in live time, and actually like a week, 2 weeks out.
Yeah. This kind of goes with that, and it is really my last question. Your thoughts on whether you are more aiming for quality of your ASINs or quantity. Do you want to really be testing a lot and really grow your catalog so you are getting that data from a bunch of different things? Or do you want fewer and super good quality ASINs? Has that changed over time? Probably.
Yeah.
What has that looked like for you?
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this right off the bat. Very, very few times have I made a 50 unit order, let's say, like for the first or second time buying a product, and it's panned out the way I hoped. Like very, very few times. Now, you do your test buy, it flies, you do it again and again and again, and then there's 1 or 2 products I'll buy 100 of a week type of thing. Those are so far and few between, and that took me 4 years or whatever to get there. Especially in light of what's happened. I don't think I ever went super deep on stuff, but especially in light of what happened with me and the restrictions and stuff, I really like going wide. And you know, for me, again, I'm playing a long-term game. I've always had a long-term mindset. So to look at it this way, just using round numbers, instead of buying 50 items of something that could be good and might pan out, I'd rather buy 10 units of five different things, maybe five different brands, five different sites. And in the short term, maybe those aren't quite as profitable as that one ASIN that I would have bought. But now I'm getting feedback on five different brands and items that over the long term, when you really step back and scale that out, I think it's going to be a net positive by a lot. So sometimes I'm willing to take the short-term loss to go into new things to be wider, especially now. Now, again, I'm still like very rigorous on my sourcing and my criteria, but I think a lot of people like the idea of getting to go very deep because it doesn't take as long to source. Like you could spend your money quicker, right? Um, and sometimes it pans out and sometimes it doesn't. But for me, I as I get better and better at sourcing, I love always adding new brands to my catalog because again, once I get a taste that it's good, or now I'm going to go all these different keep a product finder filters through it, and I'm going to really give it the attention. And who knows, it could be one of the next brands that's like one of my top five or that I'm really an expert in. Those don't just come out of nowhere. You have to start somewhere. So um, I wouldn't say I'm extreme on either, but more than ever, like I'm definitely more in a wider phase right now.
I feel like with our experience and with in general just becoming better sourcers, the quality of our ASINs has just naturally gotten better,
Right.
just from practice. And similarly, I don't foresee there really ever being a time we aren't going wide.
Yeah.
Like, even though we do have things that we buy deep, that's great, that's very exciting, but it's not stopping us from always wanting to try new things and be in a bunch of different brands and a bunch of different products and branch out. Kind of similar with the RA. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to walk in a store and not scan. I don't think I'm ever going to not see what else is available and what
Yeah.
else is out there and how it does.
Totally. And
Um,
and we've all had products, by the way, that you do a test buy on a chart that like it's like I have a for one or two context clues tells me this could be great. No one else is selling this because probably this makes no sense. And then you can go deep, right? Like and those opportunities present themselves too. But yeah, but if you think that it's not worth your time to buy three of something, you can overlook a lot of these that will pay off down the road where you can rip off 50, 100, a couple hundred over the next couple months.
so true. Um, okay, those are all my questions. So if anybody has any before we sign off, please go ahead and put those like in the chat. Jonathan, can you just kind of give us an idea again where you are at on social media and what kind of content people can find from you where?
Yep, sure. So YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify. All Duke does Amazon. By the way, Duke is actually, I don't know if it's faded, but
I can see
I
it.
know it gets confusing, but I loved my dog. He passed a couple years ago, and so when I made up like a name, that's where it came from, by the way. So yeah, and basically, I've taken a little bit of a break in the last month just because honestly, I had to get situated with I had like 20K of restricted inventory. I had to figure out Walmart, all that, but I'm pretty consistent. I source all the time, so I'm always trying to share new things and ideas that I have from being in the trenches. I definitely like to sprinkle in a good bit of mentality as far as this goes, as we were kind of talking about, like not to sweat the small stuff, but it all pretty much pertains to Amazon, some interviews, some Keepa charts,
And
and
you
stuff
interviewed
like that.
Tracy,
Yeah.
actually.
What's that?
You interviewed Tracy, I
Oh,
think.
yes, absolutely. It's been a while. I had Tracy, that was over a year ago now. That was great.
Yeah. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's on there too. Okay. Well, I just to share my own what I think people should go back and look at, but when I was looking at your stuff, Oh, I'm sorry. Melinda asked, Melinda, I'm assuming you're talking about PPC. Do you do any advertising? Do you run PPC at
No,
all?
I don't. Do you or anyone in in the group?
We don't. Tracy does
Okay.
sometimes, and she particularly will for Prime Day. You want to say it, Tracy?
Yeah, so I typically for Prime Day will run some PPC. I run it from pretty much November through the first week of January. And then because I do my own branded bundles, I will sometimes, not all the time, sometimes run some PPC just to get some traction.
Okay.
Uh, like I had one, I think I put it on PPC for 2 weeks and we got ranked sub 10,000 within two
Wow.
weeks. I took it off. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
To
just kind
that
of
point,
for a start.
I'll say this. I feel like I'm pretty well versed, but like I am nowhere near like a full-on expert. And I'm so openly willing to admit that. Like there's things I'm learning every single day, seriously. Whether I implement them or not, I just know it's like there's so much more to learn.
Yeah, for sure. Well, like I said, I love your content. When people go back, I do want them to like look. I kind of wrote down some of the things that I just think are the best about it. Um, but a lot of posts about context clues that I mean, I saw several when I was looking back today going
Yeah.
through it. They're all so good and so true and things, you know, that are common sense, except for the fact that they're not.
Right.
And it's like someone needs to point them out to you. A lot of like talking off the cliff of the scary things of Amazon. You did a post about looking at like buy box statistics, 30 days versus 90 days for velocity. You did something about front loading your purchases if you are like in a cash crunch. So your credit card, like just
Yeah.
such simple things that like anybody can put into practice no matter what level you're at, that, to be better and to, have more success. And I just think it's really down to earth and really like honest and refreshing. And yeah, I feel like this was great. This
Awesome.
conversation was great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for all the kind words. And yeah, no, the context clue things is, I always think about it. You're painting a picture before you buy, right? And so it's all, the more data points you can add as obvious or out of the ordinary as possible is great. And it was awesome being here. I really enjoyed it. I have tremendous respect for you, for Tracy, Steve, and all you guys. I've been watching from afar and like, it's super impressive. So I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you. Well, thank you again for coming out. If anybody has anything else, you can find him over on his channels at Duke Does Amazon. And that is it. So thank you very
Bye,
much, guys.
everyone.
Bye-bye.